All right. Hey, everyone. So glad to see everyone that's come already, and I'm sure more folks will be joining us as we get started. So welcome to today's genealogy drop-in session. Um, I'm Ashley. I work at the Simpsonville Library, and today we have co-host Rebecca from the South Carolina room at Maine.
Hello.
So I hope y'all have all got some questions in mind. You can always add those in the chat. And we will get to those hopefully in order. Let's see. So yeah, so anytime you have a question, you can either just ask the question or you can type it in the chat bar. And yeah, so we already have a question to get started with. And Rebecca, do you want to get us started with answering that?
Sure. We had a question about how to get started with researching genealogy and wanting to do it at, on a budget and knowing what sites to trust. And actually, one of the great things about being a library card holder is you can get access to Ancestry.com for free. And we have a couple of other databases as well, like Fold3 that you can look at military records. Heritage Quest is also accessible with your library card. You can also come into the South Carolina room, and we have a lot of resources on microfilm, especially if your family is from this area of South Carolina. So you can have things like obituaries and newspaper articles, probate records. There's different places to get started. We also have some materials in our room for a basic family tree to get started. We have some different books that are how-to guides, and some of those how-to guides also circulate if you ever want to check one out when you're getting started. And then we had a question about also how to know what sites to trust. A lot of it is just is kind of putting different puzzle pieces together, verifying, this came from this source, does it match the census record? Does their birth date match in different locations? And kind of working from there. A lot of like public trees, sometimes people put information that they're conjecturing in there. So a lot of it's just verifying in different sources.
So yeah, has anyone used any of our library resources, whether that's our online resources or any resources from the South Carolina room? Has anyone used any of those before? All right, that's totally fine. Yeah, we have a link in the chat. And let me share my screen so that y'all can see library website. So if you go to greenfieldlibrary.org, and look at our learning and research tab, we have a whole selection here of all the different resources that we have available online. So a good place to start is the tab that says Research Your Family Tree, and you'll see all of our databases listed here. And one of the most popular ones, some of the most popular ones, we have Ancestry, we have, let's see, Fold3, Family Search, Heritage Quest. Those are a lot of the major ones, as well as some newspaper resources as well. So to access any of these, you would just need a Greenville County Library card, and you'd be able to access the majority of those from home.
The one different one on there, it would be Family Search, and that one you'll create a separate account to log into it, but it's also freely available.
I was wondering, is it possible, does Greenville County Library have access to ancestry things from other countries?
We do have access. There's different levels of ancestry, and the library edition does have access to, I think, some United Kingdom records. I've seen a few European ones in there. I've seen some from Mexico in there. Another one that works really well for a lot of international stuff is actually Family Search. They have a lot of international stuff in their collection.
Okay, thanks. We're looking specifically for Italy, and we are looking for Mexico as well. So what kind of information do we need to have in hand before we start looking for our search for, the ancestry, the genealogy thing?
So typically you start with what you know. So figuring out, grandparents, great grandparents, getting information a lot of times just from your family that you can figure out, like names, birth dates. Maybe someone has an obituary, a family Bible. So starting with what your family already knows, and then you kind of work your way back from there. rather than starting in Italy and then trying to work your way forward.
Right, I understand that, but is it, in other words, we have my great grandfather and great grandmother were born in Italy, and I know their names and the city that they lived in, but I don't necessarily have their birth date. And like my grandmother, we still to this day don't know what day she was born. She always said it was a certain day, but her twin was born the day before that. So we always celebrate her on the 12th, but was her twin born on the 11th? She was born on the, we don't know. But it's basically, I didn't know if there was any other information that we should have other than just names and birth dates. Is there anything else that we should have that would help our search more thoroughly?
I'd say for a lot of Italian records, I'd probably look in like church records to see if there's like a baptismal record, or I'm not as familiar with civil records that were done in Italy. The FamilySearch.org has a wiki, and we'll drop a link in the chat for it that has some recommended sources for Italy. But they also, a lot of times they'll have recommended sources for like each province in a country as well. So it'll give you an idea of what resources are available since you have that location. That would be a great place to get started.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, let's see. So I see our next question, accessing Ancestry at the library or at home. So for right now, Ancestry has been very, very generous and has extended access to include access from home. So you don't have to be in a library. Normally, with our agreement with Ancestry, like with our the way it works, you do have to be in the library either on our computer or on our Wi-Fi. But for right now, through the summer, they've extended it so that you can access it from home with your library card. Let's see.
I have a question. I'm trying to verify my grandmother's birthday. Some of my sources say December the 25th of 1899, and some of them say September the 25th of 1900. What is the best source for verifying that to be factual? Does that make sense?
You're trying to prove a birth date?
Yes, I am. The 1900 census has her birthday as December the 25th, 1899. Her Social Security death index has that date also. The 1910 census lists her as being 10 years old, but on her tombstone and on Find a Grave, her birthday is listed as September the 25th of 1900. So I've tried to find a death certificate. I can't find a actual birth certificate, and I know South Carolina didn't do them that far back, but I'm not sure where to go to find information that's going to give me actually her actual birthday.
I think, let's see, Rebecca, you probably know this better than I do. Censuses, weren't those, don't those normally hit, what is it, April or May of the census year?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it kind of depends on when the enumerator went through, what date. So sometimes people, if like the enumerator went through in April one year, in June another year, their birth date, their year of birth will look a little bit different because it'll say 12 years and they might be 21 and the next one just when the numerator goes through. And sometimes on the census as well, the person that's answering for them is maybe not the person themselves. It could be a neighbor down the street that thinks they know the person's birth date. But having a Social Security card, but then the tombstone conflicting, that is tricky.
The 1900 census, where she's listed as being 6 months old, basically, or 5 months old, excuse me, was done in May of 1900. Well, the tombstone doesn't have her being born for months later. So, so how could she be in the census? I'm feeling like that I should be taking the census and the Social Security Death Index as more factual than the find a grave and her tombstone.
Yeah, well, sometimes even if you did find a death certificate, it heavily relies on the informant, and the informant, it could be a spouse or child, or it could be like a niece or nephew that's
Yeah.
approximating. And it could have been a situation where a different extended relation is the one that coordinated the tombstone and the death certificate.
So anywhere else I should be looking to try to find something to verify?
Have you looked into different church records in the area? Because sometimes you might be able to find maybe like a baptism or church meeting minutes or something like that might reference a new member or
But I know where she went to church, and I know she was a lifelong member of that church. So that's one place to look. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, and we have a question about newspapers and records from Old Edgefield and Saluda counties. Do we have any of those? With those, because those are.
Those are more from the Midlands, but in our databases, we do have different databases like newspapers.com and 19th century newspapers, and those do have newspapers from other parts of the state. And you can search within there by the locality.
Okay, so on 19th century, let's see, I don't see anything for Edgefield. Let's check Saluda.
And I'm checking newspapers.com just to see. The Edgefield Advertiser is in newspapers.com from 1836 to 1922.
Right, and I'm checking, let's see, checking the county library websites for Saluda and Edgefield to see if their websites would reference having either microfilm or digitized collections of local newspapers. Let's see what we can find. Not seeing anything on Saluda's to that end. Okay, so their website, neither one of their websites, unfortunately, they're not providing that information, but I would check with them. You can give them a call, email their staff and see if they might have microfilm of any local newspapers. That's always a great place to start with that. And I believe we have our interlibrary loan. If there is microfilm at another library system, is that something that we can have sent up here to Greenville?
Yeah, it can be sent to the main library here downtown, and we have microfilm readers that you can use to view microfilm from other places as well.
So yeah, so that's a really good option. So if there's an area that you're researching and you don't, either you're unable to travel or if it's inconvenient, but you know that they have a hard copy of a microfilm, you can request that it be sent to the main library here, and you can view it on our microfilm readers. And that, I think the charge is just because it's an interlibrary loan, it would just be $1 for the postage on that.
Typically.
Yeah, so that would be that's a really good resource, and we can get things from all over the country with that. Okay, all right, so it looks like Nancy had a question. Is there a database for Native American records?
I do not know of one that is it's usually like more at a tribal level. So if you're looking for a specific tribe, sometimes either in their region or even the tribe themselves will have resources. The Family Search also has a wiki page for Native American genealogy for getting started in it. I'll copy that down in there. And it'll give you an idea. Usually you're going to want to start more at the tribal level rather than a broad search. Some of those things, like for say Cherokee records, some of those will pop up in Ancestry, but a lot of times it's more at the tribal level. And it looks like the next question is looking up property records. If you want to clarify what county it is, for Greenville County, those are available on microfilm in the South Carolina room, but you can also access them online for free through the county's website. And you can do like a Google search for Greenville County Register of Deeds, and it will pull up and it'll kind of give you an option of pre-1985 or post-1985, and you can search in there and it'll go back to the late 1700s. So those are all available online. Other counties do have some of their records online. I don't know how far back all of the counties in the upstate go, but I have seen some Pickens and Oconee County records available online as well.
So yeah, and it's really neat. And one of my favorite things at the downtown library is all of those maps, the historic maps that show some general like land ownership area. You can see family names on some of the maps. And I know some of those go back quite a bit. So, and you can see how the area has changed, how the county lines have changed. I know that, is that something to keep in mind too, is how boundary lines and borders have changed over time?
Yes, you definitely need to keep in mind borders of counties, especially depending on how far back you go. Because sometimes if it's, say, Pickens County used to be part of Pendleton District and then divided up, and it depends on what side you are of that line, what courthouse those records might be kept in. I saw that you're clarified for Old Edgefield. Yeah, so if you're looking for like, if they were split, I would look in both counties. If you're not finding it in the county that you think it should be in, I would check the other county, because sometimes the records got arbitrarily divided between the courthouses a little bit. And also, depending on how far back you're going, you might want to look at land grants as well, because the state was also selling land to the public, and those are going to be at the state level. We do have those on microfilm here, and some of them are available to view on the South Carolina State Archives website.
Yeah, let's see, I'm gonna get a link to Department of Archives. They have a lot of really interesting things on.
They also have plats on that website as well, so you can get a better idea of how the lay of the land, where the rivers went through the property if they bought it from the state.
And I know some of those records, the older records especially, can be a little difficult to read if it's a description of the property. So I know some of the terminology can be a little bit odd, some of the surveyors notes and things like that. So I'm going to see if I can find a good listing, or I don't know if we already have one, that would give some terminology definitions for reading those.
I don't know of an online list. We have a book in the South Carolina room that I think the title is "What Did They Mean by That?" And it goes through a lot of the different terminology that is unusual.
See if we can get a catalog record for that. Because I know I've definitely gotten confused by some of those surveyors terms and all of those things.
I found it. I'll drop it in the chat.
So yeah, it's really great to know that we have a lot of, it's not only research like the primary sources that we have in the South Carolina room, but also sources that help interpret those. Too often I rely on internet searches to find information on how to read and understand and interpret historic documents, forgetting that we do have a good collection of materials that, may not be available online, but still have some very good, helpful information. All right, looks like our next question: when did Brushy Creek Township disappear from Anderson? Is it still in existence? That's a good question.
That is a good question.
Okay, so I guess my first question to that would be, what record did you see that identified the Brushy Creek Township? Was that from a census record, or was that identified on a different type of record?
Hello, I found information about Brushy Creek Township, I think as early as 1860, maybe earlier. And I have seen it all the way through the 1920 or 30 census. I've talked to someone from Archives and History. They referred me to a book that shows when different townships were established, but Brushy Creek is not listed as one. But they still include it as a township in on the census. So that's why I asked.
So when they were doing some of those censuses, they would divide it up by like sections in the county. Like Greenville County had their different townships and they were kind of arbitrary lines and boxes, but it also generally kind of like, so talk about like Taylor's, it's a general vicinity part of the county. So it could have been just kind of, that was the area of town that they called it that. And for the census as well, they will maybe name that like as the enumeration district, is like, is this is the township, this is the part of the county that we're in. But as far as like if it's still in existence, in Greenville County, most of the townships are not, that the name is not used anymore. So it wouldn't surprise me that it would be the same in Anderson County. For example, Austin Township, we call that Simpsonville today, like the Simpsonville area. And then like the Taylor's area, we call Taylor's and Greer today, that would have been called Chick Springs. So we don't even use those today. So it's not like they don't exist anymore. We just have a different name for them.
Is there a name for, is there a Brushy Creek town or area in Anderson? Because I've talked to other people who say that it's near, is it Pendleton County? I mean, Pendleton or Pickens County. I don't know. It's kind of close to, it varies from county line. It might be Anderson County. It might be another county that's like about a mile away or something. Does that make sense, what I'm trying to say?
Pendleton is right on the border between Pickens and Anderson.
One of the old Brushy Creek areas in Anderson County is right across the Greenville Anderson County line, is now Powdersville.
Are you saying Powdersville is right next to Brushy Creek?
The old Brushy Creek area, I think that you're talking about in Anderson County, would be where Powdersville is now. There is a Brushy Creek area down there. There still is, or was a year or so ago, a Brushy Creek barbecue. You might look that up. It's been there for many years. And that was part of that Brushy Creek area. Now, the Brushy Creek that a lot of folks know is now in the Taylor's area. And there's a large Brushy Creek church there. And it goes back probably close to 100 years. And it's near the Brushy Creek area of Taylor's.
Do you know where Fire Tower Road is?
I've traveled South Carolina a lot, and almost every county and a lot of areas have a fire tower road because the old fire tower system was prevalent up until probably the 1950s, 60s, and all the fire towers were starting to be removed when new systems came into play. So I have one near my house, and there's no fire tower anywhere around anymore, and they were all over the state.
Okay.
So I found a map of Anderson County from, I believe this one is 1897. I'm going to put a link to it in the chat. And there is a Brushy Creek district that is right where Pickens County, Greenville County, and Anderson County meet. So I'm going to post this to the chat and see if this is.
I also put a link in there that has a little bit of history about each of the townships. And I was talking about Brushy Creek Township being on the Anderson side of the Piedmont line, which would be closer to the Powdersville area, like he was saying.
Sir, can you tell me the name of that barbecue place again?
The name of the barbecue place was Brushy Creek Barbecue.
No longer in existence?
Don't know. I haven't been over that way in over a year, 2 years maybe. But where she was talking about with the county lines coming together, where you have Anderson, Greenville, and Pickens,
Yeah.
that area right there was pretty much known. In fact, one of the old historic books there in the Carolina Room has one of the sheriffs being killed down in that area back many years ago.
How could I find that out? The name of the sheriff.
You may find out through the sheriff's office. When Johnny Mac Brown was sheriff, he did a paper when he was working on his master's, and he researched every sheriff in Greenville County. You might look back to there.
Was this maybe in the late 1800 or 1900?
I wish I could tell you. I'm sorry, I don't remember. I just remember reading that back some years ago.
And I'll link to I think I found the book you were referring to. I'll link to that here in the chat.
Thank you.
All right, so do we have any other questions?
I have one. There's so many sources that you put in the chat. How can I, instead of writing it down, how can I like paste it somewhere or?
Yeah, so what we'll do after the program, we'll have all of those links. We'll collect them and send them out in an email to y'all so that you can just, quickly get to the link after the program.
And they'll also be in the description when we post the recording to YouTube. You can also find all the links below.
Okay, what about some of us who do not have, YouTube, not Facebook, right?
Yes.
Okay, great.
So if I access Ancestry.com through the Greenville Library System in my house, do I have to have some sort of password, or is that where my library card comes in, or how do I access that site?
So it'll go to your library card. So it'll ask for your library card and it'll ask for your PIN number, and that's usually the last 4 digits of your phone number. And if it's not letting you in, I would visit your local library branch and see if your card is perhaps expired. That's usually the most common reason. And you just hadn't been to the library in a while and it will be expired. But for the most part, it's just let you in with your PIN number.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so anyone else have any questions, whether it's about accessing any of our resources online, or if you have a question about one of the specific resources, if you've tried using something before and have gotten a little stuck, or aren't sure which one to go to because of, we do have a wide range of databases on there. If anyone has a question about that, we'd be very happy to answer.
Do you have plans to maybe do this type of virtual genealogy program in the future? Maybe once every quarter or something?
Yeah. So this program, Genealogy Drop-In, will be a continuing series. So we'll be doing it every other month.
And if we've already registered for this program, will you get back in touch with us or ask us if we want to subscribe or whatever?
That is a good question for our community engagement representative. I know we try to post our programs on our virtual event calendar pretty early for registration. I don't know if we are sending out reminder emails.
If you want to get registered for the one in July, the link is in the chat box.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. And in the month in between, if you haven't gone to this other virtual programs, there is a family history club that the topic kind of rotates through. So instead of a drop-in in June, there'll be a family history club.
So Family History Club will be back in June.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and
I'm sorry. Could you explain to me what the Family History Club is?
Yeah, so it's a similar setup. It's going to be virtual, but it's usually there'll be more instruction rather than just question and answer. So I think the previous month's theme was like finding your female ancestors or something like that. And the one coming up, we're going to be talking about preserving your family photographs and documents. So talking a little bit about scanners and where to store them in Google Drive. So kind of an overview of how to organize your family documents.
Yeah, and if anyone has questions that they would like answered in person or someone to walk them through using resources in person. I know here at Simpsonville, I'm usually available if someone needs some assistance. You know, I can help you walk through some things. Is the South Carolina room open quite yet? Is it still on a limited basis?
We are open. We are doing hour appointments. So you can schedule on our website and to visit us, and we'll get back with you and coordinate a time. And if you want like personalized one-on-one assistance, you can also do a book a librarian with one of us.
Yeah, and I know for Book a Librarian, we have added the virtual option as well. So you could schedule a virtual one-on-one video chat over Zoom, and I think we've made that available. Yes.
I believe so. I've known some people in reference have been doing virtual ones.
So yeah, so that's an option as well. And we do have, I know a lot of the materials in the South Carolina room don't circulate. I know there are some that do, and at the branches we also have some circulating materials that will help you get started on things. They're not the specific source books necessarily, but they are collections that will help you get started on the organizing of documents and things, how to do basic online research and things like that. So if you ever run into a question and you just want a book that you can refer back to, check with your local branch, and if they don't have something there, odds are we can have something sent to you that will help you get started on your search.
And also we're doing, if you're a Greenville County resident and you have your library card, we do have a record request form. So if you want to save yourself a trip from Fountain Inn to Maine, if you're looking for an obituary, you can request an obituary and we can email it to you or mail it to you.
Yeah, and I know we have the online, if you specifically are looking for an obituary that you need to reference, I know that we have the obituary index for Greenville News. And that goes back to, how far back does that go?
Best 100, I believe.
Yeah, so that's a really fantastic resource for finding obituaries if you need something like that. I don't know, other library systems, some have similar indexes and similar ways of requesting records. So if you can't make a trip there in person, most libraries will have an online request form of some kind. And they would have the option, a lot of them would have the option of scanning a record to you or sending a photocopy.
Is there a fee if you're not in Greenville County?
Yes, so there is a $5 fee if you want it sent to you.
Thank you. I've got to head out. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Bye.
So yeah, do we have any other questions?
I'm sorry. Just to be clear, all research in the South Carolina room, you have to have a reservation or request to come in. You can't just walk in. Is that right?
So right now we're doing appointment only. As far as I know, that's going to continue for now. So there's a form on our website where you can fill out, what your preferred times, and we'll get back to you on scheduling a time. But that's what we're doing right now currently. And I think the link is in the chat box below.
I have a question for one of the attendees. All right, sir, are you from South Carolina or Greenville County?
I am.
Okay, thank you.
Our family has been here since, the best I can tell, somewhere in the early 1700s.
Ah, okay.
And my wife, who was sitting here beside me, has been here, well, she hasn't, but her family has since 1600s.
Wow, that's great to know. I guess all this information is kind of old news for you all.
No, let me tell you, these ladies here from the library have been a tremendous help for us over the past few years, because we were aware of the Carolina room many years ago, And as everything has progressed, we have used it on a regular basis. And we're always finding new and different information. That's what's really nice about having the library like the Greenville Library here, because other libraries are not quite up to their standard. A lot of it's because they're smaller towns or whatever. Some of your societies, I know, go back to the Carolina Room on a regular basis, checking information. But being here in the upstate and in Greenville, it's nice to have the Greenville Library here. I wish the COVID thing would go away and we could get back to where if you just happen to think of something, you were downtown, you could run to the library real quick. But it will happen. But no, I think what they do and how they're doing it is a great thing. I'm glad to see the technology that we can do digital now.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
And Linda, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so thank you all so much for coming to Genealogy Drop-In. In the chat, we do have the registration link for the Family History Club, and we are going to schedule another genealogy drop-in for the end of July. So yeah, definitely keep your eyes open for future event postings. And if anyone has any questions, you can always email scroominfo@greenvillelibrary.org if you have any questions about things in the meantime. So yeah, thank you all so much for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so everyone have a wonderful afternoon, and we hope to see you next time.